The Accidental Entrepreneur is produced by Beinhacker Law and brought to you through our affiliate relationships with the following sponsors. One of One Productions, the New Jersey-based podcast studio that produces and edits both audio and video podcasts. They sell equipment for the average podcaster and have even created a guesting kit exclusively for our listeners. North Authentic, the conscious hair care marketplace offering the cleanest brands from around the world. The Healthy Place, the e-commerce site with thousands of supplements to help you live a healthier life, along with natural solutions for chronic pain, stress, anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, and much, much more. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services.
I think I moved again to another location because I kind of outgrew this thing. So I moved again. It was like 1,000 square foot warehouse.
Okay.
That was not very nice, but it was good. There was a dumpster right next to us from a deli that didn't smell very good, but
nice.
It was.
But you had room to pack us, stack up the boxes.
When I moved in, I had like what I thought was this giant space, 1,000 square feet, and I had like 4 shelving units in it. It looked ridiculous.
It looked empty. Yeah,
it looked empty. 2 years later, it was full, and I had to move again. But at that point, I had these 4 shelves worth of stuff, and I'm like, all right, I've got enough to like start a distribution business out of this, and really become a distributor, right? And really focus on the B2B aspect of it.
Because you don't want to sell one-off keys to consumers anymore. Right. You want to sell 100 keys to a guy or whatever.
Yeah, and I kept the consumer thing going, but certainly, if I could sell 100 at a time, it's just way easier. Of course,
obviously,
one at a time.
Yeah.
So did that, and I was like, okay, I've got a lot of SKUs here, so I made a website. And I was like, all right, let me go start really cold calling locksmiths and focus my time on that.
Okay.
Signed up for a trade show, a locksmith trade show that was going on in Massachusetts a few months that I kind of stumbled across looking for how can I find locksmiths.
Yeah, to get a booth or a table or whatever.
Yeah. And, it was getting close to the time of this trade shows. I realized I don't really know anything about this stuff. If someone asked me, I can't really intelligently answer other than I have keys for this price, right? But if they ask me anything technical, I can't.
Generally, you're screwed.
Yeah. So,
what would the locksmiths use it for? They were also doing installations and stuff.
They were doing the car keys. So you lose your car keys.
This is okay.
They make it for you. Right?
Got it. Okay.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Hey, my name is Sean McAuliffe. I'm an accidental entrepreneur. Started one business 10 years ago in my basement and grew that to over 45 employees. And now I'm working on a new business inspired by some of my troubles I've gone through that and challenges and really excited to be here today.
All right, Sean. So thanks for joining me today. It is actually, I was just looking today's what, January 14th? Is that right? When we're recording this, it'll be out in a couple of months. Today was the release of our 200th episode.
Wow.
Just went out today because I got some. So I appreciate that. It took about 3 years to get to, but pandemic certainly accelerated the number of people that I met.
Yeah.
And I think Holly from your organization, right, found me out somewhere on a directory or something like that.
Yeah. I just had her hunting around for podcasts that would make sense for me to come on and she reached out and glad it worked out.
Great way to tell your story. And that's what we're here to do today. So let's go back and tell your story. And, because I know you did a business that you grew and sold, and now you have a new business, and it's kind of a good entrepreneur story.
Yeah, I guess starting at the beginning, I kind of had a difficult, not easy childhood, I'd say, growing up as a teenager, went through a lot of kind of difficult things, didn't finish school. I had to work, but I had kind of a crazy dream, honestly. I wanted to be a race car driver. That's
a dream, right?
That's a dream. I wanted to do it since I was a little kid, and it never left. And in fact, only got stronger. Okay. The problem was that's expensive. And I had no money. Right.
Yeah. Right. So, I was just going to hire you to be on their team. Right.
No, it wasn't going to happen. Going to happen. So I needed to figure out a way to make enough money to buy a race car.
I guess you could have moved out in the Midwest and send resumes to Denny Hamlin and all these other guys and see if you can work on their. But then that's not the driving part of it, right?
That's right. I wanted to drive, So, and I live on Long Island. There's no racetracks around
exactly.
here.
So there's nothing out there. Right?
There's nothing. So it was really crazy because of all those kind of compounding factors. But I didn't finish school. I was working in a service business as a painter. I was making decent money doing that, but that was going to top out at some point.
House painting, indoors, outdoors.
Painting. Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to get into sales because it seemed like that's a job where you can make good money.
Yeah, it's the right sales. Absolutely. And you're good at it. Sure.
Yeah. So I ended up getting lucky. I was always into car audio, and there was a car audio distributor that had an ad out on, I think, the Penny Saver at the time, actually. Okay. And I called up, and the guy that interviewed me was a young guy, and we hit it off pretty well. And he hired me and taught me phone sales. I mean, it still is like the best phone salesman I've ever heard. But I was lucky he hired me because I had no experience in sales,
And you were selling audio systems for cars?
Like car stereos, speakers.
Right. Yeah, because back in those days, I'm a little bit older than you. We would get our first car. It had a crappy radio. You'd get the cheapest one you could. You'd rip it out and you'd put a Denon, Pioneer, JVC, right? The whole thing. Yeah, I remember.
And I always did that myself because I was obsessed with cars and I was always tweaking. So I had that experience that I understood car audio, but no sales experience. And
right. You're not installing them. You're selling them to people.
Yeah. So, so this was wholesale sales. So I was selling them car audio shops.
Got it. The installing shops, the installation shops. Yeah. Yeah.
So I got lucky. I got that job. I did that for a couple of years. Then I moved to a similar distributor, did that for a couple of years, but wasn't making a lot of money at this point.
Was it all commission based?
It was salary and commission.
A little bit of salary, yeah. But they're not big ticket items. So how much commission could you make, right? I mean,
and these were small mom and pop companies, and
they weren't ordering like train loads of this stuff at one time.
And the commissions weren't big. Even if I sold $1 million, I was probably getting 1,000.
Right? Exactly.
So it wasn't like
tiny.
Yeah. There was not a lot of upside. It was great people, and it was great experience.
And it's probably great experience, right? Yeah. Phone sales is hard.
I mean, I started with 0 customers, and I just had to grind it out.
No, that's great experience for business. No question about it.
And it really taught me, you got to just keep going. And even the days where everybody's, saying no to you and sometimes just cursing you out to leave them alone, you got to just take it in stride and keep, smiling and dialing.
The next one's going to be a yes, right? I mean,
so
definitely a mindset to be able to do that. A lot of people 100%. Can't. Yeah.
So, some days it's brutally like, I can't do this today. And I can't make 50 calls and get 50 rejections today, but
it's funny when I started. So I don't want to get too off the topic, but when I started I graduated law school. My dad was in the life insurance business. So I didn't know sales and marketing either. And, the prospects in law weren't great. And I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer. So I went into insurance sales. And I remember I started in the city with this guy and he made me do like 10 or 15 cold calls. It was the worst experience of my life. I said, I'm never ever doing that again.
Yeah.
And, there was all prospect marketing, but it's like the worst. You call people, they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. And the worst is when I was sharing an office with him. So you have a phone call where you, especially in the beginning, where you just like garble your words and it just goes terribly.
He's listening.
He's listening, nervous. It's just like makes it so much worse. So,
oh man,
but it was a great experience. Eventually I got comfortable and we started having fun with it. He gave me a great piece of advice. Like when calling these people, just pretend like they're your friend, talk to them like they're your friend. And that kind of makes it a lot easier. Just have a conversation. It's just another guy at the other end of the phone. It's not some superstar. Right. So that was something that really helped me. But certainly I had those moments where I was like, this is like the most embarrassing moment of my life right now. But anyway, so did that.
How long did you do that for?
Total about 4 or 5 years between.
Okay, well, that's a great experience. You can't replace that.
Yeah. And, and I had done some experimenting with, hey, let me source some products in China. I'm pretty tech savvy. So I'd go on Alibaba and find a wire supplier and help import like cheaper wire, less expensive wire. So I had kind of been getting creative with stuff like that at both these companies.
That was the early days, Alibaba, right?
That was like when it was not
like
crazy.
Amazon. It's
yeah,
like the world Amazon.
It was still kind of like a bit of a secret at that point.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Like I knew something that a lot of other people didn't know, that I could just go in there and find Chinese suppliers.
Yeah. Why were you importing the wire? Who were you selling the wire to?
The car audio shops.
Oh, because they needed wire for installations and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever it was, if it was speakers, I try and find something that was like very popular and we could save a bunch of money on and kind of have an in-house brand.
You did this with your boss. It wasn't like on the side.
Right. I did that at the companies. It wasn't my job, but I just kind of was
but a little entrepreneurship, creative. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I had this thing. I always wanted to start something. I just didn't know what it was. I wanted to make more money. And I was always listening. And at some point there was this customer that I had been calling on prospect really, that I've been calling on for like 4 years. That
he hadn't done business with you?
Hadn't done business. They were bigger than us they were a installer, but they were bigger than us as a distributor.
Got it.
So, and I would have good conversations with. After 4 years, we had a.
But what did you had certain lines of product that he didn't have? You wanted him to carry your stuff? Our pricing
wasn't even good enough. He bought more than we sold. But I'm like, hey, let me just be a backup supplier, like something, right?
Right. Okay.
So
you stayed with him.
I stayed with him. Just kept calling every few months. So finally, I was just like, listen, man, I've been calling you for like 3-4 years. Like, surely there's something you can buy from me. What can I sell to you? We have a great relationship. We talked on the phone for 10 minutes. What can I sell to you? It was like, almost out of like frustration. It was like, we buy these car keys from this company and we don't really like them, but like we need these keys when we install a remote start in Ford vehicles. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. What do you pay for them? And he told me the number. I don't remember it. Maybe it was like $10 or something like that.
So it was like a remote, right, to start the car because
just the key itself. So in modern cars, the key has a chip in it, right? So your car key has a chip in it, even if it looks like a basic key. So when you install a remote start, you either need to install a module that tricks the car into thinking there's a key there, or you put a key in this little box and you hide it in the car and it relays a signal.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
So, I was like, all right. So then later that night, I'm thinking about it. I was like, I start doing some research on the internet and, I find these keys again through Alibaba for like, I think it was like $3 at the time, $3.50, maybe $4 per key.
Okay.
Then I'm like, I started looking around some more. And I see them on eBay for like $14 or $16, somewhere in that range. And I was like,
there's a margin there.
There's a margin there. I had like no money. My credit was terrible. I had a credit card with I think $300 limit on it. And I basically maxed that out and bought like 30 keys or whatever it was from China.
Bootstrapping. I love it.
Yeah. Had it shipped over and started selling them on eBay. I didn't even call him. I just started selling them on eBay. And
because you probably call them and you'd be like, listen, I got 30 keys. You want to buy 30 keys?
Right. You'd be like,
I need 3,000 keys. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I started on eBay and I was just literally at like, it was like 30 keys, 25 keys, the first order.
And this was a side hustle, right? You're still working.
Yeah.
Because you can't pay your bills with 30 keys, right?
No.
So, okay.
No. So,
but it wasn't something your boss was doing. So you're not competing with him. He's not selling these things.
Exactly. He wasn't doing it. So, it's like, all right, this is good. Maybe this is my thing. Right.
Right, man.
Who knows?
I can't hurt for the rest of your life.
Exactly. Right. Which turned out to kind of happen. But, eventually, like, I remember like the next day at work after I like got the keys in, made the eBay listing, I heard like cha-ching, and it was the eBay notification that I sold one. That it actually gave you on the app. It would give you like an audible like cha-ching sound.
Right. Now, who was buying these keys then? Was it people that were installing their own like remote start systems? Is that what it was? Do-it-yourselfers?
Well, that's a great question because at first it was mostly consumers who went to the dealer and the dealer's like, oh, it's $300. Right. So then they look on the internet and they're like, oh, $14 for this key. I'll buy it. A lot of them didn't realize that there's other things that need to happen. Like,
you just press the button.
But it still ends up cheaper when you do it this way. But eventually, so first I was consumers, but then I started noticing locksmiths were buying from me. So then the bell went off, or the light bulb went off in my head saying like, I have this B2B sales experience. I've got business owners that are similar to the customers I deal with now, kind of small mom and pop type operations, ordering these keys from me. So, it started to be where, okay, at first I was packaging up one or two when I would come home at night and then dropping them off at the post office the next morning. Then it was 5, 10. Then I researched, okay, what's the next most popular key? What are all the other eBay sellers selling? And at the time, and maybe still, eBay would show you how many sales they had. So I would just look at whichever different key has the
highest volume, right? Sure.
And I ordered that keys. Now I had 2 different keys in stock, again, very small amounts. But eventually I had like 5, 6. I had like one little shelf with a couple boxes on it next to me.
Right.
In this small
little home-based business.
Little home-based business.
Yeah.
So once these locksmiths started buying from me, eventually at the time, eBay would actually leave their phone numbers for you to see and their email addresses. Now they hide it. But I started, I had the B2B experience. I had the sales experience. So I just started calling them directly and saying, hey, I noticed you bought from me on eBay. If you buy from me directly, I can save you 5% and, just make it easier.
Right.
So did that for maybe like a year until, and kept adding more products till eventually I had like 2 shelves in my living room apartment.
But they were all keys. They were just different kinds of keys?
A couple of remotes as well, like keyless entry remotes. Just kind of figuring out what's the most, what am I going to sell the most of the quickest? Right.
Right.
So then eventually I was like, all right, I've got 2 shelves here. I'm taking up all the space in my living room. I'm in a basement apartment. Like it's dark. I want to get out of here.
Right.
So I've sublet like a bit of office space, just in like this big office that there was like 4 different small business owners in. So
it was like a shared type of thing.
Exactly. Like, I guess co-working before
the early days,
right. Yeah. Just by accident.
Right. That's what happens, right? People just share or whatever. Yeah. They can afford it because you can't get little space. You can't, it's very hard to rent like a room with a desk. That's why the co-working thing came about.
Like, if you do that, I mean, it's still $800 a month and then, maybe you got to get
internet hooked up and the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. So this was, it's cheap. It was pretty close to me. It was next to a junkyard. So it was a bit of an upgrade. At least it was upstairs.
We're in a basement.
So it was a bit of an upgrade in that regard, but maybe the scenery wasn't that great.
Right. Well, the rent was good, right?
The rent was good. Good. And there was good people in the office that I could, kind of chat with and learn from. So, and then at some point I was like, all right, like I've got this one key that was very popular. I was selling a lot of them and I was making good margin.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to try and get a better price. So I'm going to order 100 of these things. And this was a remote key. So it was a fairly expensive one. Maybe the cost was like $10.
Okay.
And so this was still very expensive.
$1,000. That's a big investment. Yeah.
I get them. I order them. I'm like, all right, I saved like $2 a key or $3 a key ordering 100. I get them. They're all defective.
Defective.
None of them worked.
Oh, shit.
None of them worked.
It wasn't like you go down to the store next day and say, hey, guy.
No, there was nothing. China. And I tried telling this Chinese supplier and they're like, yeah, whatever,
Right. Good luck.
Good luck. So that was, that was $1,000. That was a big hit, but just kept growing it from there.
And how old were you at this point, Sean?
I actually made the LLC in, I think it was August of 2012. And I was born in 84. So it was at 20, what's my math here? 28?
84. No. Yeah, that's about right. 2014, you would be, 84, 94. No, 30. 2014.
Oh, yeah. So 2012 is when I started it. Somewhere around 30.
Okay.
Actually, no, it was like 28, 29 because I was just getting married.
That makes sense. 2014 would be 30 years. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Can't do math when I'm live on camera.
Yeah, it's hard. Me too. I'm not a mathematician.
So I was still young, I had at that point, my wife and I, or my girlfriend and I at the time got married. I actually made enough money to like pay for a wedding.
Okay.
I quit the job, the full-time job, probably, I think it was like 9 months into it. I was making enough money where I was like, all right, I can quit the job and still pay the bills. And I think I still have runway here. So let me focus full time on this. So you weren't,
so you left the audio.
I left that. And I said, I'm just going to focus on this. I was probably making the same money doing that at that point as the car audio business or close to it.
Right.
And I was just like, all right, if I focus full time on this, I can
double it.
I could double it, And there's
your wife was okay with that. She was supportive.
she was supportive. She was definitely nervous. We were young. We wanted to have a baby soon.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of upgrade our situation,
Yeah.
She was definitely nervous, but supportive. And, it was easy to see, I had 10 SKUs and there were guys with hundreds of SKUs on eBay. So if I just get more SKUs, I'll sell more stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that would follow, right?
You'd hope so.
If you pick the right SKUs and they're not defective.
Yeah. They're not defective, but that's, that just, I've learned that in business, like those things just happen constantly, and really owning a business is just putting out those fires all the time. It seems like, or, helping put out those fires all the time. Then things were going very well. I hired someone to help me. Some people were not good. Some people were good.
Right.
But I had like one helper, and it just, kept getting busier and busier, buying more products, selling, building my thing, until eventually I was like, all right, I've got, I think I moved again to another location because I kind of outgrew this thing. So I moved again. It was like 1,000 square foot warehouse.
Okay.
It was not very nice, but it was good. There was a dumpster right next to us from a deli that didn't smell very good, but
nice. But you had room to pack us, stack up the boxes.
When I moved in, I had like what I thought was this gigiant space, 1,000 square feet, and I had like 4 shelving units in it. It looked ridiculous.
It looked empty. Yeah.
It looked empty. 2 years later, it was full, and I had to move again. But at that point, I had these 4 shelves worth of stuff, and I'm like, all right, I've got enough to like start a distribution business out of this, and really become a distributor, right? And really focus on the B2B aspect of it.
Because you don't want to sell one-off keys to consumers anymore. Right. You want to sell 100 keys to a guy or whatever. Yeah, and I kept the consumer thing going, but certainly, like, if I could sell 100 at a time, it's just way easier. Of course, obviously, one at a time. Yeah. So did that, and I was like, okay, I've got a lot of SKUs here, so I made a website. I was like, all right, let me go start really cold calling locksmiths and focus my time on that. Okay. Signed up for a trade show, a locksmith trade show that was going on in Massachusetts a few months, that I kind of stumbled across looking for how can I find locksmiths. Yeah, to get a booth or a table or whatever. Yeah. And, it was getting close to the time of this trade shows. I realized like, I don't really know anything about this stuff. If someone asked me, like, I can't really intelligently answer other than like, I have keys for this price, right? But if they ask me anything technical, I can't. Generally, you're screwed. Yeah. So, what would the locksmiths use it for? They were also doing installations and stuff. They were doing the car keys. So you lose your car keys. This is okay. They make it for you, right? Got it. Okay. So I had a locksmith that I had formed a decent relationship with, who had been buying from me little by little. He was a young guy like me. So I was like, hey man, I've got this. I think he was in Pennsylvania. So I was like, hey man, I have this trade show, and like, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you come with me? And like, I'll pay you, for the day or for a couple of days. Like, can you go? It's like, all right. So we did that trade show, and it went really well. And from there, we just it really expanded with the B2B thing, and things really started blowing up both ways on the retail business, but also on the B2B. And just, from there, just kept growing. You opened accounts, and those accounts bought on a regular basis. It wasn't like one consumer is a one-time buy for the most part. Yeah. So within a few years, we were, in the beginning, no one gave us any credit, right? We were kind of coming into this like a little bit more old school business. Yeah. So getting, I was like, okay, now I want to sell other brands too, like key machines and things like that. So I had to convince these companies to put me on as a distributor. And they're like, who are you? And like, we never heard of you. One guy tried to find me, and like my warehouse was like behind this deli. So like, you could easily he was like, let me look into these guys, and he couldn't find me. So he's like, no, he told the manufacturer, like, no, they're not real. Like, it's BS. So they wouldn't sell to me. Yeah. So another brand that I wanted to sell, that was like, it was the most popular, the best key programmer in the business. Okay. So I was like, if I can get this brand, it would like legitimize me. And so I went to the same trade show. It was maybe a year or two later. Maybe it was the following year. In Massachusetts. In Worcester. There's no trade shows in Long Island or New Jersey or Penn. No, you got to go all the way to Massachusetts. We eventually did our own on Long Island, but that was like 8 years later. And I sat down with dinner with this company and trying to convince them to sell this to me. And they're like, all right, well, if you can buy X amount,
we'll do it. And they basically put out a number that was insane for me. $100,000. I would need to buy $100,000 of product from them.
Up front.
What
were they selling?
The key programming devices. So they were
the device that programs the keys.
It's like a $4,000 device. So it's not that many units.
Right.
But for me, that was like $100,000. I think I had 30-day terms.
Like, 4,000. 4,000 was your wholesale cost? Or that's what it sold for?
That's what it sold for, but my cost was like 3,000. It's not like I made a killing on these things.
So you're going to get like 10, 20,
30,
20
40,
units, 30 units. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit more than 30 units.
Yeah. And I was like, man, this is like really scary. But I pulled the trigger. I kind of called their bluff on it. And it was a really good decision. And it did help legitimize me. And then I was
able to get a credit line for that one?
They gave me a small credit line.
Okay.
I don't remember the terms exactly.
But it was more like a commitment. You committed to $100,000 worth of product.
No, I ordered it. They sent me $100,000, and I had to pay it
even some
30.
of it was on credit. Okay.
Yeah, I think I had to pay it off within 30 or 60 days.
Okay.
So like I was putting out, like I wasn't going to sell them all within 30, 60 days, no matter what. I was coming out of pocket $70,000 or more, and then just sitting on this inventory, hoping that I could sell it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So that was a risk, right? Like I could just end up sitting on that and not selling it, but it was also motivating because
but it wasn't $1 million,
right. For the 100,000 for me at the time felt like $1 million, but but yeah, it was a big risk. So from there we got it. We did pretty well with it. It legitimized us. We were able to get other brands, and we just kept growing. So by the time I sold, I think we had 6,000 SKUs in stock. We had a few $1 million in inventory.
And it was all the remote key industry all
keys,
around.
Remotes. Yeah. We got into a lot of stuff with locksmithing. So key machines, key programmers, lock picks, little parts that go inside a car lock, doorknobs, even that type of stuff. But our bread and butter has always remained keys and remotes.
Got it. Okay.
That was really the bread and butter. That kind of paid for everything else,
That was your biggest
seller. It, yeah. The strategy was, let's get all this other stuff so that people can buy everything from us so that they buy the keys and remotes from us. That's where we made all the margin.
Right.
It was our own brand. We set the prices. Everything else, if we were distributing something, maybe we're making, 20% on it, where if we sold our remote, we were making 100%. Right.
Right.
So it was like, get them to come to me to order this lock pick. And when they do that, let's sell them keys and remotes,
Right. Well, it's an lost leaders, right?
Yeah.
You want to get them in.
So
now I know, and you'll talk about it, they ultimately sold the business, right? But from a strategic planning standpoint, right? I'm sure you thought about what are you doing next and where are you going? Did you ever have it in mind at the beginning? Like, hey, I want to grow this and I'm going to sell the business someday. Or was it just like, I don't know, today we sold 100 keys. Let's sell 200 tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I never thought about selling. In fact, I was thinking about buying. I did buy a business.
Okay.
They focused on like commercial hardware. So like doorknobs and stuff for commercial buildings. And my customers did that stuff, but I didn't sell it. So I wanted to get into it. So they were a smaller company.
So that was also sold to the locksmiths?
Yeah, they also sold to locksmiths.
Got it. Okay.
So that was 2018. They were in Portland, Oregon. I bought them. We moved out there for 6 months. My wife and my kids.
Oh, so you kept the company going there.
Yeah. I kept my company in New York, and my operations manager was managing the day-to-day. And we moved out to Portland for 6 months to kind of get things going with the plan on coming back, put a manager.
Why'd you pick a company so close? Why don't you pick one in like Hawaii or Guam or something, or Samoa? I
guess I like the idea of 6-hour flights regularly.
Yeah, exactly.
And rain.
Right. How did you even find the company?
I was on some broker website, I guess, I just started looking around and
it's a good way to find businesses.
I didn't think that much about it. I was like, hey, I want to get into this. There's a business for sale. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Probably should have thought more about it.
Probably you should. That's definitely not a recommendation to all the people listening.
Yeah.
Just throw caution to the wind.
No. I'm discounting a little bit.
Yeah, obviously
I thought a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And you did your reresearch and whatever, but
yes, certainly don't discount the fact that it's across the country. But so
what did you do? You hired a guy, or did they have a guy to run the business? Like after 6 weeks,
I hired somebody. Basically, as soon as I got there, I started looking for somebody. I found a great person. So 6 months later, I moved back to New York, and then I would just go out once a month to work on projects and stuff like that. So yeah, from there, I was thinking of, maybe I'll acquire more businesses. I could have done a better job at that one, but I was like,
it's a learning experience. The first one,
yeah.
Right? I mean, it wasn't a bad purchase, right? You made money.
Some, it was kind of like a break even thing, but
it wasn't that good.
I never got to. My plan was to get us both on the same software, and then we just never got there because a year later I got the offer also
to sell.
And
got it. Okay.
I had not been thinking about it, and it's at a trade show, locksmith trade show, one of the bigger ones. It's like the kind of the national locksmith trade show, and a guy comes up to me, and I'm talking with a customer, and I'm doing my sales spiel and trying to sell whatever machine or whatever this guy was asking about. But I could see this guy looking at me, and he's wearing a suit. And in the locksmith industry, people
not a lot of suits.
Not a lot of suits. Right. So like I could tell, and I could tell he's waiting for me. So I was like, all right, what's going on here? So I finished my whatever I'm trying to sell with this guy.
Right.
And I immediately go to this other guy that I could tell was waiting for me. Start talking to him, and he was from a private equity group that had invested in actually the competitor that I personally put a target on their back. Like, that's whose business I want to try and win from is this big company. To me, they were like the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And
so they owned them.
They owned them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So he approached me and had, a brief conversation about, hey, would you be interested in selling the business? We did. Right. I don't even know if he brought it up at that point. He probably did in some kind of small way.
Right.
But then we made committed to talk again after the show. But yeah, from there, we went through they kind of brought it up. We did a NDA, then we did a LOI. Yeah.
The whole song and dance.
The whole song and dance.
I mean, they were looking to do what you were doing, what you were thinking about on a smaller level. So
yeah,
they're rolling up companies basically.
Yes, exactly. So the first company that my big competitor was the platform, and I was going to be one of the add-ons.
Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to get into podcasting? Maybe to market your business for your own enjoyment, or because you have a message you want to get out there. One of One Productions is a New Jersey-based studio just over the George Washington Bridge that caters to the booming business of podcasting. They offer a comfortable atmosphere using the latest technology available to record your podcast. And they are a full-service media company offering both audio and video production services, creating both audio and video podcasts as well as video shorts for business and personal use. Professional audio equipment packages are available through their website for all budgets, and be sure to check out their podcast guesting kit, created specially for our listeners. Care for your health, care for the planet, and look flippin' great doing it. North Authentic is a conscious hair care marketplace offering the cleanest brands from around the world. Their pro stylists curate only the most fabulous non-toxic hair products with better-for-you shampoos, serums, masks, and more that actually give you gorgeous hair without hurting your health or the planet. Hey, you've only got one life, one planet, and one glorious mane. Might as well treat them all as best you can, right? Try a 100% clean hair care routine prescribed just for you using their link in the show notes. If you don't see a big, beautiful difference in how your hair looks and feels, you can tell them they're crazy. Do you battle chronic pain, stress, anxiety, or depression? Well, if you take any supplements or you're interested in natural alternatives, you need to know about findyourhealthyplace.com. Find Your Healthy Place has thousands of supplements to help you live a better quality of life, as well as natural solutions for chronic pain, stress, anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, and much, much more. Need guidance? Use their live chat feature and talk to a wellness consultant right on their website. And be sure to use our coupon code TAEPodcast for all your purchases to get the best prices at findyourhealthyplace.com. Follow their links in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. Got it. So how long did that whole deal take to close?
Well, so it took a while because now that I know how this works, what they and they're great guys. I'm still in contact with them, and actually I just had lunch with them a week ago. But what I learned afterwards, when I had more time to kind of look into this and listen about acquisitions, is this thing called strategic pacing. Okay. Where, you don't rush things on purpose, right? Give the person a lot of time to just, so it didn't go quickly. And I think it didn't go quickly on purpose,
Right.
for there. Like where I was like, hey, like what's going on? Like we haven't got the LOI yet. It's been 2 months.
Right. Well, they're strategically, they're looking, you're not the only person they're talking to. I'm sure they have a whole strategic timeline, right? Which different acquisitions, when it's going to come on, they're pretty sharp with their numbers, right?
Yeah. And these guys are super sharp guys. So they know everything they're doing. But I see, that was July. I think that show was April. And I think we closed in December. Maybe it was even longer than that.
So 6 to 8 months. That's not that long.
Yeah.
It's a lot of due diligence. And they have other deals going on. So it's not like,
right.
It's not like you're dealing with a private owner and it's just you.
Right. I think that's right. But I could be wrong, but it felt
because you acquired the company in Oregon probably a lot faster, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was not like, a lot of it was not due diligence time. It was just like, what are they doing time? Like I sent them this stuff and
they're busy doing other things. That's
Or maybe they're just letting me stew in it. I don't know.
Maybe they're like, let them chomp at the bit a little bit.
Yeah. So you get a number in your head and then you kind of get fixated on that number. It's hard to like, get off that. Right. And once
maybe that's part of the strategy, right?
Yeah. 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 So, I don't know for sure, but I've heard other private equity guys talking about the strategic pacing thing where it's just like, you do that and it just helps you in the end.
Yeah.
But, so that was, November of 2019, we closed the deal.
November 2000. Okay. Just before the pandemic.
Just before the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. When people stopped driving cars for like 8 months.
People stopped driving cars.
Right.
But we were down in, so April was, a disaster. I think we were down like 40%, which
in April 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we shut down a month before.
Yeah. So March was like, the beginning of March was okay. And then it just like dropped down, but it didn't turn out to be that awful because the beginning was okay. Where April was just like awful.
Nothing.
The whole,
of course. All your customers were shut. It wasn't like, were you a locksmith? You're an essential worker? I don't think so.
They were
allowed to stay open because you needed like locks and problems. You get locked out.
You got to get into your car. You got to get into your buildings. But people weren't calling them to do
because you're just sitting home. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right. They did call them when they absolutely needed them, not any other time.
No, their business dropped in the toilet.
Yeah. So, but by July, even though people still weren't driving, we were having great. We were back.
You were busy.
We were growing again above where we were in February.
Okay. Why?
Well, one thing that we ended up doing, we had all this free time. And we had talked about doing webinars and education before, but we were so busy that we never really had the bandwidth to do it. But now we're like, all right, we got nothing to do. Our customers got nothing to do.
Right.
Let's start putting a whole bunch of education out there. So we started doing a ton of webinars we did a mix of free ones where.
Now at this point, you're owned by the private equity group, right? You're just working for the company. Yeah. Part of the deal was you had to stay on.
I had to stay on, and I still had ownership in the company. Okay. And I had no plan on going anywhere. So, we were like, all right, well, let's start putting on this. So
but was it autonomous? I mean, you were still able to kind of run the show?
Yeah. So my role was to run my location and then also to decide automotive strategy for the entire group. That was my role.
Got it. Okay.
They were kind of weaker in automotive and that's where I was strong. So I kind of started doing all the automotive strategy for the entire company.
Okay. Makes sense.
So now we had additional resources because they had a whole marketing team and we didn't have that.
Right.
So we were really able to leverage what they had in that marketing team. And also I didn't have to focus on like PPP loans, like the finance team.
You didn't have to, not the minutia, the
finance team did that.
Right.
So like there was a lot of things that it was helpful. Like I didn't even have to think. I was just like, hey, are we doing this PPP thing? And they're like, yeah, we got it. And I was like, all right, great.
Nice.
So then we did this education and we would do anything that we could do in-house without bringing in some expert that we had to pay. We did for free.
Got it.
So like I had a locksmith on staff that was our tech support manager. He would do all these webinars and whatever we pick a topic, let's say it was key machine, some brand key machine. Here's all the intricacies of this key machine and how to best use it. Then we would just pair it with a promo on that key machine at the end. Hey, if anyone's interested in buying this key machine, we're doing it for 10% off right now. So we got like a little bit of business, it was a lot of business for the time, but in normal times, it would have been a little bit of business, but it generated money to keep some money coming in.
Right.
And we kept doing all these for like 3 months. And what we found was that we had more new customers than ever before, just all placing much smaller orders.
Got it.
But we had got more new customers, I think, in May than any month ever before.
Just because everybody was online, right? They're sitting
Everybody
around.
was watching our webinars,
Right.
coming in, and then they would buy one of the things that we had on sale, or they would buy one thing from us. But they were a new customer. They came to watch our webinar because they had nothing else to do.
Now they're on your mailing list, right?
So then July, when July came and things started to kind of go back to normal at that point, and people could
that's when I first went back to my office, was in July.
Exactly.
I have a co-working space, so I went back. Yeah,
exactly. All those people, all those new customers started ordering from us, like real stuff, real orders now. Plus
they're back in business. Yeah,
they're back in business. So we had a great July, and we finished out the year up 20 some odd % on the year. So
it was a good strategy.
It was a good strategy. It worked out. We just had, it's one of those things like when you order, your biggest order and they're all defective, right? Like you just have to, just figure out a way to make, lemonade out of the lemons, really.
Right. Well, you nobody's buying. So you figure, well, let's educate people, but you're actually building your client base as a result of it.
Yeah. And we were getting goodwill. I mean, our customers appreciated it. They were able to, we were putting out free education for them. They were able to learn. And when things got back to normal, they were going to be able to take the stuff that our guys taught them and build their business better, which helps them and helps us, right? If they do more business, they order more stuff.
And they'll be loyal to you because you're helping them.
They really, a lot of them really appreciate it. We got a lot of just like emails thanking us for putting that stuff on, like just really heartfelt emails. So it was rewarding in many ways. It helped the business, but also it was nice to be able to kind of help those guys when they were struggling.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So you sold the business in late 2019. You stayed on running the business. I know you don't run it now, right? So tell me about that time horizon. What happened with that? How long did you have to stay on? What did you have to do? What did it look like? So
then surprisingly, the company actually, usually with a private equity deal, you don't think that the company is going to sell again for 3 to 5 years. You know? It sold within a year. So,
and you had equity. You kept some equity.
Yeah. So December 2020, it sells again, and to a larger thing, rolling up and doing all this stuff. So that was a bit of a surprise, right? And at that point, the pandemic's been going on for however long. I was working from home for the most part. And hadn't really taken a vacation, So anyway, it sells. We go through the sale. I stay on. I was planning to stay on. I still didn't have plans to leave unless like, whatever. I wasn't planning on leaving. But
did you get cashed out at that point? You had no more equity. It was all sold.
I still had some equity, but I was able to cash out a bit more.
Okay.
And I still believed in, there still is a lot of runway in that business. So I still believed in the model and everything that the new people's plans were, I was completely on board with. So it made sense. So I stayed in again, but I was able to take some more chips off the table. But then, after 6 months, I was tired. We were I think I was just burnt out from going 2 years, through the pandemic, two mergers. The company that we merged with ended up getting sold off. So all the work we had done to come together got undone.
So you mean the bigger company?
The first company that I merged with.
Right. They spun them off.
The
new buyer.
Yes.
Okay.
So all the accounting, marketing, all this stuff, like having to be redone. And like, that's not my favorite part of the business, is like getting into the weeds of accounting. It's actually my least favorite, having to redo things I already did. So like there was that. And I was just like, I hadn't taken a vacation forever. And I was like, I need time, and then it was a hard decision. It was probably the hardest decision I ever made was leaving. It was very, very difficult, but in July of 2021, I left.
Okay. And you were like, that wasn't a plan.
It wasn't the plan. No. But, I started feeling like, I'm just not enjoying
into it.
Yeah. I'm just not enjoying my job right now. And I just feel so stressed out. It'd been 10 years of rapid growth, which is amazing. And I'm not going to complain about that, but it especially the first 4 years, I was literally on the computer like 14 hours a day, just sitting in front of the computer, grinding away, trying to build a business. And then from there, going through the 2 mergers, the pandemic, the no vacation, and stupidly, I should have just taken time off, like throughout this whole thing.
Of course, people should pace themselves. You don't always, the days of like you start Facebook and you program for 72 hours and don't sleep. Right. There's no reason to do that. Like, you could. Yeah, that's pretty funny. But
especially
you're also older. Young, you're excited. Now you're getting older. You're like, I don't need this all the time.
Yeah, I've got kids. I had 2 kids at the time. I had a third on the way. So I was just like, man, I'm burnt out, and so it was a hard decision. But I left in July. I gave good advance notice. I still want everybody to succeed. I'm here if they need me, and I let everybody know that. But it was definitely a difficult thing to do. Thing to do.
All right. So, because you're a real entrepreneur, it's not like you were working for a guy who was a locksmith and then you learned his business and then you continued to do that and grow it. And then a lot of people have trouble going into a new business. You really were working for somebody and then you're like, listen, I'm going to do something. And you saw an opportunity, didn't know anything about it, and you grew it from there. And you really, it wasn't like came out of business school, right? So you kind of learned those skills on the street as well. Have you ever written a business plan at any point, strategic plan, anything like that, or not really?
When I had to when I got a loan for buying the new business, I had to.
Yeah.
But other than that,
that was the first time.
That was the first time. Before that, I had thoughts in my, I had thought through it a lot. But I'm
sure you write things down, but it wasn't a formal. Yeah.
It wasn't formal, and I would communicate, what I wanted to do with, my team, but I never like had a formal this. I just kind of had it all up here. Yeah. And had a plan and just kept going and pivoted when we needed to. If a new opportunity kind of presented itself that was better than what we had previously seen, we would go for that.
Yeah, you weren't so in love with whatever you'd done before. You're looking for improvements, opportunities, whatever.
Yeah, whatever's going to bring the most growth fast. Right. That was pretty much it. But honestly, like I tell people all the time, and I would tell people like I'm faking it this whole way. Like, I'm figuring it out as I go. If anything, I'm a chapter behind everyone else in this industry, but I'm just like figuring it out.
You're probably not as far behind as you think, because they're not as smart as they give themselves too much credit, probably.
It's fun. It's funny. Like you always think the grass is greener on the other side. And I would look at my warehouse and I'm like, man, like there's so many things I'd want to do better in this warehouse. And, it ran very well. I mean, there were times where we'd ship 1,000 orders in a day, like crazy amounts of stuff. Right. But I could always see like where we can improve, having never been in like one of my competitors' warehouses at that time. And then, eventually I start seeing these other, I'm like, actually, we're doing pretty good.
Right. You're better than you think you are.
Yeah,
it's always the case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Give yourself some credit,
All right. So you walked away from the business, right? Did you sell out the rest of your equity at that point, or?
No, I didn't really have that option. So I'm still,
you're still floating along there.
Still floating along there.
Okay. And what do you do? Like, what do you do the next day? You're like, oh, I'm a free man, and now I can take some time off. What you were going to do next? Did you have any idea what you're going to do next?
In terms of business, I had no idea what I was going to do next. What I was going to do is take some real time off. So I took a month off. We rented, we spent a month at a beach house, did that. And I had a baby. That was July. I had a baby coming in September. So I knew I wasn't going to get involved with anything until, in any meaningful way until, December, January, because, I want time to spend with the baby.
Right.
So, but I had ideas, I always have ideas, things I wanted to do. And one of the things that kind of frustrated me going through the merger process both times is like, sometimes I was, who do I have to call to get this stupid little task done, and it's going to, or like, I got to get a check cut to this thing. And it's like out of the standard operating procedure, like, who do I call? And then you end up spending like 10 minutes to track down someone for a 2-minute thing, or 20 minutes to track someone down for a 10-minute thing. So, I had that idea floating around in my head, and that's where kind of the genesis was for this Huey app, which is an org chart that is searchable and lives within Slack. Because for me, like a lot of times I'm always like, I want the newest, coolest tech, right? And I'd find some like cool app that I'd be like, this is going to make your sales so much better. Like I'd tell my sales team, like, use this thing. It's gonna be great. Right. No one would use it because it's like another login. Like I check
It's something else they got to learn. Right.
Something else they got to learn. Like they got to remember another password, and no one would use it, So I was like, all right, whatever I make, like it has to be where people are working. And, nowadays that's Slack and Teams. Right.
Right.
So that's what we did. I eventually hired a developer to start building this out,
because you're not a tech guy. You just had an idea.
Yeah.
And you're
I'm
like
tech savvy, but I'm not
right. But you're not a programmer.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So, and I like challenges. I like here's a new thing. Let me.
Right. But you had some money to invest. You had experience with the frustration dealing with larger companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But at first was it, so it's basically like a plugin, right, for Slack.
So we have it both ways. It works separately outside Slack. So if you just need to build an org chart quickly, like a lot of times, it's like, hey, I need an org chart for this board meeting, tomorrow, right? If you need something quickly, we do that as well. Like a CSV import, we can turn it into a beautiful org chart in a matter of seconds.
And it's Huey?
Huey.io.
Okay.
So
that in the show notes.
Yeah, we made it so that, if you just need to build one quickly or you want to build one manually, you can do that. But, the fun idea is get it to connect with Slack so that employees can, when you're building out someone's profile in the app, you can put their skills, right? So whether it's HR, 401k, payroll, benefits, you can put all these keywords in that person's profile. And then you can search those keywords in Slack. So you can say, / who does 401k? Like I need to deal with something with my 401k. Who do I call in the company for that?
Got it.
So you can search that right in Slack. It will pull up a person's contact info. It will, show them on the org chart and you can click in and get all their information. So that was really the idea, is kind of for fast growing teams, for larger organizations where, it's, you don't, when I was 40 people, you didn't really need that.
Right. You kind of knew all the basic players
knew all the base players. But once we started merging and getting new players, it was 40, 120, 240, then it's like everyone, I'm at the top of this thing pretty much. And I don't know most of the people. So my staff aren't going to know them either. So it was, so that was like definitely frustration of going through merger, but that kind of inspired me to build this thing and try something new.
Yeah. So the application itself is, you can build like a static org chart just because you need to show it or whatever. But if you put it into Slack, it only works with Slack, I guess, right? Does it work with any other?
We haven't done Teams yet. We wanted to kind of just start with one thing.
Okay. But then it's more of a database product, right? Where it's not just it's an interactive org chart where you can click on it and find it and search it. And it makes sense. I mean, you think about org charts, you just think of 12, 13 people, but if you have 300 or 400 employees, it's a big chart.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're going through, if you're a private equity deal and they're doing roll-ups, you're adding more people every year, right?
Right.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Or if you're just like a tech company and you just have rapid growth, I mean, you're just adding people regularly. So how do you keep all those people knowing who they need to get in contact with at the company for whatever problem?
Right. So it's like an org chart company directory piece of software.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
The one thing that a lot of HR platforms have it built in, but like both HR platforms that we had, the employees didn't like going in them. They weren't really built for employees. They were built for the HR people.
Right.
So yeah, you could have that somewhere else, but if it's not within access of the employee, like they're not going to use it.
Right. Well, if they live in Slack,
right,
that's the ideal, or Teams, that's where you want it.
Right. Exactly. So that was the idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, now just working through that and trying to build that up.
And you have versions of them out on the street. You have customers using it.
So we just recently launched. We've got a few customers right now.
Okay. They're B2B, right? The customer's the business.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got a few customers playing with it at the moment. So now the idea is we have once we have an org chart and all the people, there's other things that we can do with that, right? We can say like, all right, what does that person do? What are their standard operating procedures or employee recognition? So once we have a good base of users, it's kind of, all right, figure out what's the next thing that these users would like to see that would be helpful for them running their business and hopefully start building those features in the future.
So are you still kind of in a beta test? I mean, the product's available, right? But you're kind of still not going full force. You're working with these different customers to try and figure out what they need and how they need to use it and what the quirks are, things like that.
So at this point, it's the org chart part of it is fully functional and ready. I wouldn't even say it's beta. In my mind, like everything's beta because I always want to make things
you're always
better.
Testing and checking, right? Of course.
But no.
But if it's like, available to the general public, it's not beta, right?
It's available to general public, 14-day free trial. So people can test it and they can build their org chart and make sure it works before they pay for it. We don't even take a credit card up front. But once I have a good base of customers, then it's like, okay, what's the next thing that we can add that will help us add value to this for you?
Got it. Well, I mean, that's what I was just talking to somebody yesterday. That's kind of what all the really successful entrepreneurs that I've met over the years, they're never complacent about what their customer needs are, because they recognize that, first of all, whatever you think your customer's needs are, you're probably wrong. That's the first part of it. And if you're even close to right, it's always changing. So,
yes,
especially in the tech business with applications, people start using things and then they're using it wrong and they're using it different, or they're like, that doesn't do what I need it to do. And then you can't figure that out. And the flock goes to another watering hole,
Yeah. And that's, funny bringing that up. That's something that we did pretty well at my company. We, at some point, we created a Facebook group for our customers. Mm-hmm. A lot of our customers actually, network on Facebook because, if you think of a locksmith, a lot of times they're a one-man operation and they run into all types of weird problems that maybe they've never ran into. So How do you get help, right, from other locksmiths around the country? And how do you do that? Facebook groups. So we started our own Facebook group. Right. And we had, we invited our customers in, and this way we can kind of have like real two-way communication with them and figure out like, what are their needs? What would they like us to sell? What can we do better? It's a double-edged sword because when anything goes wrong, it gets out there on the Facebook group and you have to address it publicly. Right. Yeah. But it keeps you honest, and keeps you really, on point, but that goes to like building kind of community with your customers and listening to them. Right. Like most of the times when I made a mistake is because I had an idea that no one else cared about,
Right. Exactly. Well, you don't want to, you want to limit the big mistakes. Yeah. You always make mistakes, right? But if they're relatively small mistakes, you can recover from those. It's the, like you said, ordering 10,000 units and then finding out that nobody's going to buy them or they're all defective. Those are big, when that's a lot of money to you, those are big mistakes that you got to live with. So, and I know we're running out of time, but where are you going from here? So the company's launched, Huey is available. I could go to a website, I could download it, use it, so forth. What are the plans? What's coming up in the future? And then I'll ask you about advice for other people and so forth.
Yeah. Well, for me, for Huey, it's keep marketing, get customers, listen to the customers and build out the additional features that will, provide value to them. For me personally, I'm doing this year. I'm doing a full season, my first full season in a racing championship. There you go. So all right. I'll be doing that. And really excited for that. But yeah, for Huey, just keep working.
Where do you do that? There's no, there's horse racing in Long Island, but
no, not on Long Island. So I'll be going to tracks around the country. So it's a
like Poconos and those kind of tracks.
More
Monticello,
Sebring, VIR. So not the oval tracks, the circuits like Formula One style circuits.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. And so I'd love to talk to you about the cars that you're racing and all that kind of stuff. But so as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, that you really kind of fell into it, right? You've been figuring it out along the way and continue to do that. What are the one or two things that you would, if you were talking to somebody getting started in business, young or old, that advice you would give them to maybe increase their chances of being successful?
Yeah. For me, like, what I like to say is have a personal goal, right? Like my personal goal was I want to be able to drive race cars. It's a ridiculous one, but that's what I wanted, right?
Well,
and to achieve that personal goal, I had to do all these other things, right? So having that personal goal drove me to put in the extra effort, put in the time, take the risks, the calculated risks that
motivated you.
It motivated me.
Right.
So if I could impart one thing, it's have a personal goal that you're working towards, because having that goal is going to naturally push you along, going to motivate you to do better in business or whatever it is. And the other is, the things like these defective keys, all these things, these bad things that happen, right?
Right.
That's, for us, it was when Amazon changed the policy that we thought was a disaster for us, right? But what all those things do is they weed out other people that do give up, right? And those things are never going to stop. There's always going to be some fires that start that you got to put out, right? The difference is the people that put out the fire and figure out how to not let that fire start again and get ready for the next one, versus people that go, things on fire and giving up, right? Like if these things are going to keep coming, they're never going to stop.
Right. Well, it's a sign of life, right? Things are always going wrong or whatever. Yeah.
And the difference between, in my opinion, the difference between successful people that end up successful and people that don't is the ones that are successful just keep going, right? They figure out the solution for that one. They try and keep it from happening again, and they move on,
Right.
So you got to just be,
and it doesn't, they don't sweat it. It's just part of the business, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's stressful when it's happening.
Of course, but if you recognize that it's going to happen, you just don't know what it is. Yeah. And maybe it's not as impactful when you're like, oh, well, I figured there's got to be 20% of the industry is dropping out now. So that's good.
Exactly. So just, have the tenacity, just get through it, and, be ready. The next one's going to come too, right? That's not the last one. So that's really, what I can say is, have a goal and
persevere.
Persevere.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Persevere.
Stick-to-itiveness, I think I heard somebody call it once.
Yeah. Grit.
Grit is a good one too. Okay. Well, I appreciate it very much. So Huey.io is available. People can go to that website. If people want to interact with you or find you, I assume you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, all those, the LinkedIn, social media platforms.
LinkedIn for the business stuff, Instagram if they want to follow my racing stuff.
Good. Follow your racing career and write to you for autographs.
Exactly. Hopefully I'll be standing on the top of some
so so you got to promise me your first race that you win, you take, to take pictures, whatever. So you got to send me an autographed
I will.
Photograph. We'll put it on the background and
definitely
for the thing. So Sean, I thank you very much for joining me and telling your story, and let's definitely stay in touch.
Definitely. Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate it.
If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on Amazon Music, and many of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com. The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted and produced by me, Mitch Beinhacker. If you'd like more information about my legal services, you can find me on social media or visit my website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.